Welcome to Brevis Talk. The talks you are about to hear will be honest, revealing, and unfiltered. Join us as your host, Pastor Wayne Whiteside, lifts the lid of silence and has conversations about mental illness and health in the church. The goal here is simple. It is to help someone along this journey of life who is struggling. It is to tell the truth to the unsuspecting. And it is to lighten the load of a fellow traveler. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to serve as medical advice or to replace consultation with your physician or mental health professional. If you are experiencing a medical crisis, call 911 or go to the nearest emergency room. Now, here's your host, Pastor Wayne.
You have landed again at another Brevis Talk. Before we get started, let me say something that sort of surprised me. A few episodes ago, the episode was called The Incorrigible One, and I heard back from someone that said that that was not a real positive message, and I guess they're assuming that I should not bring those messages in prison ministry that are not positive and that don't turn out the way perhaps some would like them to turn out. Well, folks, that's the way life is. We don't all live happily ever after. Not everyone that I witness to comes to Christ. Not everyone goes to heaven. Not everyone lives for Christ. And so I'm going to tell you here the facts, the good, the bad, and indeed sometimes the ugly. Today is such a story. It is appalling, it is disgusting to me, and yet it is what it is. The pool of bitterness. Exodus 15:23 says, talking about the people of God, says, when they came to Marah, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. And then it says in parentheses, that is why the place is called Marah. Bitterness. That literally was a pool, if you will, of water that was bitter and not drinkable. There are people that you're going to meet in this life, I hope you're not one of them, who are full of bitterness. It may be because of a wrong done to them. It may be because of a perceived wrong. Let me tell you, if you are a bitter person, you are poisoning yourself. It's like drinking the poison and wanting it to kill someone else. It is poisoning you. It is ruining you. It is ruining your relationships. And so the Bible tells us to avoid bitterness. Ephesians 4:31 says, let all bitterness, wrath, and anger be put away from you. And we also know that bitterness contaminates people. It is it's contagious. It's airborne. Hebrews 12:15 says, see to it that no one comes short of the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up, causing trouble, and by it many be defiled. Now let's go back to the prison, and let me take you to a story that happened in the Dallas, Texas area. There was a man on a motorcycle, angry, bitter, and just decided that he was going to go out and kill someone. He felt like he was cut off in traffic. He was on this motorcycle. He drove up to the diesel truck, the 18-wheeler, and emptied several shots into the cab of that truck, killing that driver. He would drive around later, come upon a convenience store where a gentleman who was very close to retirement was out putting gasoline into the gas station, into the tanks, moving them from the truck to the tanks. And he drove by at close range on the motorcycle and shot what I understand to be a very dear and kind man. Why? Because he was just angry at the world. And we don't know that those are not the only people that he hurt. You look at his life, he was an intelligent man, he was an educated man, but he was angry at the world, and no one really knows why he was angry. His life was not so bad. He had not been abused. He had decent family. He was just an angry person. Well, I was asked to visit this man in prison. I was told he's going to be obnoxious. He is going to mock your faith, and yet he needs to be visited. And I visited him, and he did all the above. He smirked, he mocked the faith, he cussed me, he cussed God, and on and on. And our visit lasted about 15 minutes. I tried to visit with him again, and he rejected my visit. And then I had a few more visits with him later, and he told his story. He always wanted to tell his story about how he had been done so wrong. And it reminds me of a song, if you'll remember back in the 70s, something about the lyrics, won't you play another somebody done somebody wrong song? And so he would throw a pity party. And if you say my heart sounds kind of cold toward him, well, I don't have a lot of empathy for this man, because a lot of folks tried to help him, and we were not able to help him because he chose to be an angry, bitter man. All the other inmates around him hated him. They called him the Whistler. He would whistle nonstop all throughout the day, and if he found out that his whistling troubled or bothered someone, he would whistle even more. He loved to make people miserable. How can you be that bitter? How can you be that angry? Well, I don't think he's the only one. I think in our world we have bitter people. Bitter people get on social media and they stink up the relationships, and they poison the conversations that are, many of them that are decent conversations. They are optimistic and hopeful conversations, but it just takes one person. Don't be that bitter person. This man gave an interview to a radio station and also to a news person over the course of his life, and he railed against society. And you get the sense when you listen to him that everyone was wrong except him. And the world would be a better place if we could just come to his point of view. A few years ago, this man was executed. None of the men missed him. No one was sorrowful. And I look at the end of his life and I say, what a waste. Intelligent, capable, what a waste. Bitterness. It'll destroy you from the inside. It is a spiritual cancer. If you are a bitter individual, please let me encourage you. Please let me encourage you to call upon God and to ask God to help you. And I look back and I think about what I might have done differently, what I might have said to this man, how I might have approached him differently, and I can't come up with anything that I would have done differently. It's, as I've said before, it's as if he was hell-bent on being hell-bound.
And that concludes our broadcast today. Please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, check us out at our Facebook page or at brevistalk.com and take a look at our blog. And remember, be kind. Always be kind.